We're live.
We're live. All right, so we're going to just take some time for people to join.
Let people filter in.
Yeah. One of the pieces of advice that I got from my lovely wife was I was speaking too fast last time.
Oh.
So if I do that, like...
Pump the brakes, brother.
Punch me in the shoulder or something, and I'll slow down.
I can't do that. You're too old. You might crumple to dust.
In the chat, how old do you think I am?
Don't do that.
42.
On a scale of 1
55.
to chopped unk. How chopped unk is Dr. Robert?
Capital chopped.
Okay, everything is recording.
Everything's on.
Cool. We're recording on school. We're live everywhere. All right. Well, topic today is going to be really interesting. I'm going to give you a big preface before we go into this. Because of legality, the topic we're talking about is purely an observational hypothesis that I have confidence in, but I cannot say there is causal evidence. I cannot, technically diagnose ABC or XYZ from it. But it's purely what we have seen, what makes sense in our observation with regards to anatomy and physiology, how it correlates to how the nervous system develops and whatnot. So all that to say, just don't report us to the board or whatever if we say something that is too much. This is just a very interesting conversation, very interesting topic.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important topic. We're going to be talking about a particular thing that we see a lot of in practice that we take care of a lot of kids with a particular misalignment that we find and what that misalignment means for the development of the child's nervous system, how it impacts things like primitive reflexes, which we'll go really deep into in the school portion of this talk. So if you're not a part of the school community, there is a link in there to join it. And we're going to be diving really deep into primitive reflexes and things that you can do at home, and a little teaser of something that I've been working on, but I won't reveal that yet. But anyway, this particular misalignment, how it impacts the nervous system of the child, what you can look for, what can you look back on your child, what did did they show evidences of these things, and then what we do about it, and how Gonstead chiropractic care, specifically Gonstead chiropractic care, is tailored at handling it and taking care of it and whatnot. So. All that to say, big caution, big precautionary starting point with this, but AS occiput is what it's called. So, Dr. Kyle, what's an AS occiput?
AS occiput. This is the occipital bone of the skull. So this is the back of the head, right? So we're talking here. And so this is the joint where the occiput is going to sit on top of the atlas, which is the first cervical vertebrae. And so the occiput is the way that the joint is designed. The joint is like this. It's like scoops. And so it's the bone. It's in charge of yes, right? So if you are a good husband, you're going to be doing this a lot. But, Tori, does he say yes a lot, or does he say no? No?
No.
I think he might need to be adjusted.
He might need to be adjusted, because I think Dr. Rob does a lot of the rotation, which is the atlas. He's saying no a lot, but he should be saying yes a lot more, and that's what the occipital bone, or occiput for short, that's what it's in charge of. And so the way that the occiput misaligns, there's two main misalignments. There is a PS, which means it goes posterior and superior. So if we're looking at it from the side, it's like this. Or, I'm exaggerating greatly, or AS is when we're looking like this, right? So that means it's gone anterior and superior. And so what's really important here is you see this hole. This is where the spinal cord goes. This is the foramen magnum, and that's where the spinal cord goes. So when it goes PS, you can see that nothing too crazy there, but if we go AS, what's it doing? It's compressing or occluding this space. And so what is in this space is the brainstem, essentially, which is where a lot of primitive reflexes are located.
So, this part...
Before you do that, can you do that again, but hold it more towards us?
Like this?
No, so we can see the hole.
This.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So when we go posterior superior, we can see that doesn't have too much of an impact on the place where the spinal cord is. But if we go AS, anterior superior, we could see, do you see the occlusion there?
Rotate it down a little bit.
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can see that is compressing the space where the spinal cord or the brain stem is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so to reference ourselves, okay, we're looking, this is the bones, obviously this is the brain. This isn't going to fit perfectly, but theoretically the posterior part of the brain is going to sit in this, like the seat here, which is the hole of the occiput, and then the brain stem goes down here.
Yeah.
The reason why this is important, and I want to preface this for anybody who is on this call and they're like, I didn't come here to learn chiropractic, misalignments and whatnot. The reason why this is important is brain stem is where every primitive reflex lives. Like the housing of it, if you had to like pick where on the body does it live, it actually originates and lives in this brainstem area. And we're going to be talking about how obviously, if you are a parent of a neurodivergent child, you are more than likely have heard of the term primitive reflex. If you haven't, the idea is that these are the reflexes that you are born with that are designed to keep the baby alive and developing. And it's God-given reflex, or like obviously the most common one is like rooting reflex. You swipe the cheek, it'll go and look for the nipple so that it can feed, obviously to survive. There's a bunch of these. There's like 20 plus of these reflexes. They live in the brainstem. So if we're panning out and you have a child who's like 6, 7, 8 years old or even older, there should not be any living primitive reflexes left in that child because they should all go away by about 12 months. It's designed to basically get them through that first year of life, and then they are integrated. That's the term, meaning they basically check off that box. It's like, all right, we're good to go. We can now move into less reflexive movements and now more into thoughtful movements. These are cognitive, like I'm actually thinking about making this movement. And these integrated reflexes are now deeply embedded into the nervous system, and they now are able to do what it's designed to do purposefully as opposed to reflexively.
yes.
So now, if you're like, okay, I don't have a baby at this stage in my life, but there's still a child I still have a child who has retained primitive reflexes. The reason why we want to educate you on the AS occiput is because we can probably, through what we're going to teach you, you can probably look back in the life of your child, particularly in the stage of 0 to 12 months, and see signs of maybe a misalignment in the AS occiput and how that's impacted the child.
Yes.
So, okay, just kind of like frame everything.
No, that was great. So 3 big signs that your child has had or has an AS occiput through their development. So first of all, how do we get an AS occiput? Before we get into that, how does this even happen? Typically, it's through the birthing process, specifically with C-section. It can happen with a vaginal birth. Even the most perfect vaginal birth can still be very stressful. But if there is some sort of birth intervention used, whether it's forceps, vacuum, especially C-section, it's very easy for this joint to subluxate or become misaligned, where we go into an AS fashion, right, where it just gets pulled up. And so if that is baby's first few seconds of life, and that's not checked by a Gonstead chiropractor, because really Gonstead is the only type of chiropractor that's looking for an AS occiput, well, then that is just going to stay there. It's not going to be corrected, right? And so,
at least not like targeted correction.
Correct.
Like there may be some like indirect correction through other analyses that might be helpful, but this is like, we're pretty much, unless I'm missing, we're pretty much one of the only ones that are going to be like looking directly for this and how to specifically analyze and correct that.
correct. And so the 3 big signs or things that we see in kids who have this misalignment, it starts with typically what is called a stargazer baby, where your baby, things that you might commonly hear is, oh, they just love the lights. They just love to look up at the lights, and they're always looking up at the lights, because if we're looking at that, what is my occiput doing? It's going anterior superior. They're always looking up at the lights. It's not that they love the lights. It's just that's the comfortable position for their head, because if they try to bring it down, it's uncomfortable. The second thing we see is something called the retained tonic labyrinth reflex, and what that is typically when baby's holding their head up when they shouldn't be, and that'll be your grandparents saying like, oh, they're just so strong, look at them, they're so strong, right? You think that that's a good thing, but actually it's because, again, it's uncomfortable for them to have their head down and relax. It's more comfortable, so they have to force their head up. And so the tonic reflex, or tonic labyrinth reflex, when you're holding your baby, their stomach is to the floor. I wish we had a baby model here. But you're holding your baby, their head should be about horizontal.
Do you want a live baby model?
We have a live baby model if he'll cooperate.
He just woke up. I know he might not.
Dr. Rob.
Let's see. Let's see if he's even awake.
We have Nicholas live on the...
Hey, what's up,
joined the call.
buddy?
Any questions you have for Nicholas, you could drop them in the chat. He will be responding.
What's up, buddy?
But,
Okay, he just woke up and fed. All right, let's see.
So, as he's bringing the baby horizontal like this, his head really shouldn't remain horizontal like it is. He's
It
not.
should remain horizontal.
It should.
Yeah.
He's not bringing it up to look around, right?
Yeah.
If he has an occiput, he will bring the head up more to see what's going on, also because it's more comfortable.
Yeah, an
Now-
example of a bad, like lift his head up, like what we would see, would be like a ton of extension up there.
A lot of extension.
Yeah,
right?
that
Like
would be
this,
a
like this.
bad thing to see.
Right. And so now as we flip him around, right, there should be some slight, there should be some slight extension, and then also the arm should come up like you
Yep.
just did.
Yep.
So this is normal for him to have, right, at this point.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're done. We're sorry. We're sorry. But it's normal at this point for him to have this because, again, this is a primitive reflex that's aimed at helping him survive. Now,
buddy.
if this is never corrected and this reflex is never integrated, we see a lot of toe walking, right? Because and this is for two reasons. As the head is up, your center of gravity is up. So
And it's
stand
forward.
up, and I'm going to show you. So if my head is up, my head is more forward. What do I automatically do? I'm automatically on my tippy toes because of the balance. And I'm exaggerating, but this is how it is. Kids will come in with a very distinct AS occiput where their head is up, and because of this, their balance, they have to go on their tippy toes. The other reason for this is because that tonic labyrinth reflex was never integrated, and that leaves them with proprioception issues. Proprioception is your body in space. So if I close my eyes, I know where I'm sitting, I know where my head is in space. If that is never integrated, there's a hard time with balance. And so that proprioception is never handled correctly. And so those are pretty much the three big things we see with an AS occiput. So it's the toe walking, it's the stargazer baby, and then the baby that's holding their head up.
Yeah, and one more in the baby phase, because obviously a baby, they're not going to be walking. Kirsten, would you like to hold a baby? The other one is that with breastfeeding challenges. I'll put two more. Breastfeeding challenges, you'll get the woodpecker baby. So they'll be on, and then they'll be popping their head up all the time. And that's because, again, it's hard for them to keep their chin tucked down to be able to stay latched. So their babies go to the path of least resistance. And so if it's the resistance to keep your chin down and latched, they're not going to like it, and they'll pop off a lot. And you'll just have like a woodpecker baby, basically. The other one that is very interesting to me is severe separation anxiety. So babies, obviously, particularly within the first 3 months of life, are going to have separation anxiety because they are metaphysically still attached to mom. They call it the fourth trimester for a reason. They basically don't even realize that they are separated from mom yet. So to actually physically separate them from mom is really hard for them. Now, beyond that, if they have a severe separation anxiety, particularly like you'll notice these where like dad or another family member will hold the baby, and obviously, if they get a little upset, that's different. But if they get just belligerent, like absolute, like they feel like it seems like they are on the brink of death, like they're really freaking out about that. Also, car seats, particularly because obviously mom's not going to be holding them during that. There's a couple other reasons for car seat freakouts as well, but that's another example. Is that you'll have the big separation anxiety. The reason for that is that when there's pressure on the posterior part of the brainstem, it causes a severe fight or flight situation because it's basically it's an extremely stressful thing for the nervous system to go through. And then when the baby's in severe stress, they want mom more than anything. And so then when you separate them with an AS occiput, they'll have very high levels of separation anxiety. Last one, I'm going to throw one more in there just because I think this is so interesting. Okay, bonus one is lots of immediate spit up. If you had a baby that when they would feed, you would lay them down and then immediately like projectile vomit spit up, or either if it's projectile or not just dribble, but like more than dribble and maybe sometimes less than projectile, but in that range. But it has to happen immediately. The way you'll know it's immediate is it's not curdled. Basically, if it's uncurdled, then that means it didn't make it down, that it didn't make it into the digestive juices, so it stayed in the esophagus. And the reason for the AS occiput contributing to that is that AS occiput will literally cause this chin to come up, and it closes off the esophageal tube. Basically, it's like the size of a straw at that point, and if any little more occlusion to that will make it really hard for them to digest their milk, and so it'll come out relatively quickly. So you'll determine that based off of the quality of the spit up, basically. If it's curdled, that's something else, but that's another example.
So those are the big things that we're looking at. So if that sounds like your child, if you're listening to all these things, then there's a good chance that there is an AS occiput misalignment, and that has, like we talked about, really three main factors. There's the mechanical factor of that, where we typically see toe walking, that kind of thing, but more importantly, we have the neurological factor, where typically they'll be in more of a state of fight or flight mode, because the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal, the thing that helps us to calm down and to rest and to regulate, is located up here at the top. And so if there's pressure up there, that brake pedal's not working the way that we need it to. So that's
also located in the back.
Yes.
So it's top and
Top and
posterior part of the spinal cord, which is exactly the area that gets affected with the AS occiput.
Correct. So we have the mechanical component, we have the neurological component, and then also neurological, but this is more specific, the primitive reflex component, where we have just sustained primitive reflexes that were never integrated. And so those are the three big things that we see with that AS occiput. And so that's why we have this, what we see in our clinical experience is there is a large pool of our practice members that we see that are diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergent diagnosis, where they have an AS occiput. So
Yeah, so the kind of the step-by-step consequence of that is if you have retained primitive reflexes, it's going to have a cascade of events that will lead to a poor brain development, and that lacking in proper brain development will show up as neurodivergent symptoms, ADHD, anxiety, autism, depending on the level of severity and whatnot. So one of the most overlooked reasons for how you get to that end of that cascade of having these neurodivergent struggles is way back in the day of that child's life is that they had an AS occiput. And so what we see when they come in at the later stage, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, we'll see, obviously the retained primitive reflexes are still there, and they're doing their very best with, OT and whatnot to help integrate them, hopefully. But we'll also look at them, and then structurally, we'll literally, on an x-ray, we'll be able to measure and see exactly, oh yeah, they definitely have an AS occiput. We can measure that and see the angle of it. And when we do the adjustments on those kids, it's dramatic improvements in these kids a lot of times. Because again, it's just, you go back to the origin, you go back to the root of the issue is stress on the nervous system that had this cascade of events that led to where they are today. What's our time, by the way? We got 1 minute left.
Great. Any questions in the chat? And no questions that were dropped for Nicholas in the chat? No? Okay. That's fine.
Okay, wait. So before we go, if you are on live on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're seeing this, we have a community called Regulated Kids. And that Regulated Kids community lives in a platform called School. It is a free community, so you can join it. There's going to be a link in the description. If you want access to these calls, that is in the premium version. So if you want to pay a little bit, you can join, and then you will get access to all the rest of these calls that we're going to be doing, the replays of all the calls. We're going to be on School, continuing this particular topic and going deep into primitive reflexes, things that you can do at home, analyzing it, assessing it, and even trying to do things to integrate it. And I'm going to be dropping another hint of something else that we're building behind the scenes. Yeah. If you want access to those, you can join School and then go to the premium version and join. That's like $29 a month. But it's totally up to you. You could also just stay in the free version. It's a great community. You should join it if you are needing help with anything regarding regulating your kids or regulating your home.
Yeah. And in that community, you can post questions that we will answer on these calls.
Yeah. You'll have access to us and our whole team at any time. Post your questions there. And then you can also influence the rest of these calls in the future, because your questions will help us know what best to teach on and talk about. Yep. Okay.
Cool.
Was that good? Did I hit all the points of all the...
I think we talked about it.
All the things we wanted to talk about?
Well, I think you did good.
All right, great. Well, we'll see you on School.
Yes, you